Good evening. It is Monday, the 8th of November, 2021, and this is Part of My Journey, episode 13. And we're going to be discussing mental health. We're going to be discussing anxiety, depression, music, 45s that lift the spirit, and a few other things as we're going along. My special guest this time around is Dave Cowan from Sydney, Australia, and also Simon Specifik Frankland. So we'll just bring them in and say hello. And there you go. So,
how you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, how you doing, guys?
Good, thank you.
Good,
right. For being in the future.
Yeah, exactly. It's Tuesday morning for you, isn't it?
That is.
Let's start with you then, Dave, and a little bit of background. So, tell us a little bit about your DJ career, how you got into DJing, etc. What sort of music, any sort of particular artists or DJs that inspired you?
For me, there was always a love of music from when I was little. The first 45 I ever asked my mum to buy me was a Sydney Divine 4-track EP of Flowery Scotland and Scotland the Brave and a couple of other Scottish tracks, you know.
Okay.
And then we had all the ABBA stuff and that. But when I was probably in my mid-teens, I really started with the sort of dance music that was kicking around at the time. So Mars Pump Up the Volume, S Express, all that sort of stuff. Bomb the Bass, and some of the early hip hop as well. I was into the hip hop at that time, sort of 86, 87 time. And from that, it was just we started playing around with two hi-fis and pretending to DJ, if you like. Okay. Put one on one hi-fi and then one on another. And then my real journey in DJing started when I was 16 from a friend at school. Her uncle had a mobile disco company. And she knew that I was passionate about wanting to DJ. So she put me in touch with him and I went out and learnt from them.
And I assume at that time, is it 12s or 45s back then?
Back then, most of it was 12s.
Yeah.
We didn't do. I mean, there was some 45 stuff from the 70s, and if you had to do like mobile discos, there's weddings and stuff like that. So it was the old 70s disco for weddings and 50s, 60s for the grannies and stuff. You know, They were all on 45 really, but most of the music that. So we played a club night on a Sunday, which I kind of took over. I was only 16 at the time, by the way, and I was working in this. There was in the town I'm from called Musselburgh. There's a hotel, and on a Sunday night they had I can't remember if it was over 21s or over 25s disco basically on a Sunday night, and after a few weeks of working with this guy, he put me in to do the first stint on this night. And that was all 12s. It was like you're just playing things like Kylie Minogue, Shaka Khan. I dropped Rebel MC one night, Street Tough. And the guy Martin that ran the company came running into because it was a proper DJ booth. He came running into the booth going, What's this? You can't just be playing stuff. I went, trust me, it's going to be massive. And it was. I did that with a couple of things like Voodoo Ray and things like that as well. Because it was just stuff that he wasn't playing. But it was kind of hitting the charts at that point and stuff. So I did that for a while, and then it was just all bits and pieces. But it was all 12 inches, really, that we played back in those days.
Yeah. And obviously that's back in Musselburgh in Scotland. So at some point you moved to Sydney, where you are now. When was that? And how did with the music scene when you moved out there?
Yeah, so there's a vast gap between those two. I lived in London for 5 years before I came here. I played a couple of things there, but nothing major. It was just house parties. And then I came to Sydney in March 2007. And I didn't have any... I literally came with a suitcase and a backpack because I came... My work brought me over to Australia, but there was no massive relocations on it. So I think it was the end of 2008 that I bought an iDJ2 so I could plug my iPod in and play a track on each channel.
Yeah, that's right. You
from,
could put
from
your
an iPod. It was about $1,000 at the time. And I had that for a few years, and then I bought a tractor controller, upgrade to a tractor controller. Then I bought some turntables, but at this point I still didn't really know anybody that DJ'd in Sydney. I was still sort of cliquey within the company I worked for. Anyway, long story short, end of 2012, I got made redundant from that company.
right.
They had to pay me a lot of money to leave, is the way I look at it.
Okay.
So I'd been with them for 17 years, so they had to pay me out.
Yeah.
First thing I did was go and buy a new bed and a mattress. Second thing I did was go and buy Stanton ST150 turntables, monitor speakers, like a whole stack of DJ stuff. Those were the first two things I did. Then I started getting back into spinning a bit. Then 2013 was really when I got back into it a bit more seriously, where I went to a bar in Sydney that had recently opened called Playbar. It's no longer in business, but it was all about hip hop, funk, soul, that underground sort of vibe. Really, really good people that ran it, Dan and Sarah. Shout out to them. And I went in there, great little space, basement bar. Dan, I was talking with Dan about music. He gave me let me jump on the turntables and just play around. Then I went back a few times. They did a night on a Thursday called Crate Diggers. So I started buying some vinyl. I would go down and just play from the vinyl, the albums or whatever. And then after a couple of years of doing that, Dan said, "Do you want to play a proper gig?" So I played. He always opened, and then I played after him one night. And it just kind of went from there. I got to meet all the other guys, and it just built on from that. And we started doing like back to the 90s nights, funk and soul stuff, which is primarily what we do. We don't really do any dance nights or anything. We've done some cracking nights though, where we just like had a good laugh with it.
Yeah. That sounds great. And just going to say a quick shout out to a couple of people in the chat. We've got DJ Constance, DJ Fade saying big up Specifik. We've also got obviously Rob, 45 Kings, and Double P. Rob said, I think the last bar you were talking about, he said that he got to play there the last night there. I assume that's when it shut, was it? Was that the last night that it was open?
It wasn't quite the last night, but it was I think it was the week before it shut that Rob got to play. Rob came up and he played the last set on it. It was good that Rob got to actually come up and actually see the bar and get to play in it, because by that point he'd never played in it. And it was just such a cracking little space. It was only capacity was about 120 people.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good number.
It wasn't, it was a good number, but it was there was also the lockout laws in Sydney, so it was difficult getting the numbers through the doors every day. It's not in a direct precinct and blah blah blah. So
I remember one of my friends who used to live in Sydney used to DJ out, and then he said that he's back in the UK now, but he said again the lockout laws. It was something to do with you could only have booze up to a certain point, and
so up to midnight you could have. You could get into a bar. I think it was you could get into a bar up to midnight.
Right.
Then there was a point where you couldn't get a drink after 2:00.
Right.
If it opened as long as that. So play bar was only licensed till 12. They couldn't get if they could have got an extended license even till like 2 a.m. It would have been a lot better for them, but they could only ever have a license till 12. It all kicked off from a couple of King hits that happened to people in King's Cross area of Sydney, which was a notorious party area. And they really just clamped down, and they basically destroyed the nightlife in Sydney as the be all and end all. And of course now during COVID, they kind of relaxed they've relaxed those laws again.
Yeah,
because they've realised that they need to rebuild that nightlife. But King's Cross is no longer a sort of club central in Sydney. It's all changed. It's more residential now, so you get a lot of residential complaints, even on venues that have been there for years before housing. So there's still issues from it all.
It was a tough time. Thanks for that, Dave. We'll come back to you shortly. So, Simon, tell us a little bit about you. I know you're certainly deep into your hip hop. So tell us a bit about how you got into music, and a little bit about your sort of career in music.
Yeah, okay. For as long as I've ever known, I've been stood behind the turntables or wanting to put my hands on a turntable, going way back to when I was probably 8 or 9. My first sort of buying my first record, I was sort of hooked from that point onwards. My dad actually, he wouldn't let me have my own record player until I was 13, and from the age of 9, this whole thing stuck in my head that I needed a record player. I could only use his. I wasn't allowed my own until I was 13, so I was obsessive about obtaining a record player.
Right.
So I suppose at the time when I had some, my first records were all 7 inches, Adam and the Ants, that kind of thing, a few bits of chart music. And then eventually when the hip hop thing came along, which was about 1983 for me, I was absolutely obsessed and intrigued by DJing and scratching. And it didn't take long for me to get my own turntable at that point, because I was sticking my records on my dad's turntable, and it wasn't too long before the needle was broken. And so I guess that's my sort of intro into music and buying records. I was just always obsessed by music, and always obsessed by buying records, and always obsessed by the actual mechanical aspect of putting a record on. And just it was we'd go around my neighbour's house, and he was a few years older than me, and just sit there, and he had one of these record players that you used to pile up the 7 inches and watch them drop. And did you ever see any of those back in the day? They used to as a record finished, it'd go back, another one would drop down, and we just used to listen to music and just obsessed by records. And it was a strange time, because like our local newsagent had a record. It was a record shop in the newsagent. It was like it was really bizarre. And it was like an arcade machines in the newsagent. Literally, you could do everything in this newsagent. It was interesting times.
Where was that then? So where was that based? Where?
Bristol. Just outside of Bristol is where I kind of went to school and sort of got my first sort of taste of music. First taste of buying records, I would say. I was definitely into music all the way back to being 5 or 6, trying to record myself on my granddad's tape recorder, that sort of thing. I
think we've all been there and done that. Back in the day.
And then from there, the hip hop thing really took hold, and my first focus, my first love was breaking and graph. And the music was really just a backdrop to that at that time. Although I was buying records, I wasn't really thinking about obsessively buying them or DJing actually. And that probably wasn't until about 2 or 3 years later that I felt that was probably the road I was going to start to go down.
Okay. And you've put on quite a lot of great hip hop events, and obviously one of them was a few weeks ago when we came down to Bristol. So how did you get involved in putting the events on, and tell us a little bit about Roper Dope and how that came about and what you've done with it?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've been releasing records since 1996 was my first release, and from that point I was always involved with DJing and club nights and putting on my own nights. So it was just really the natural progression of the sort of latest chapter, which is Beeline Records, was really to put events alongside the label to support the artists and what we were doing, which was just basically creating a day. So it started off, I think, somewhere around about 2013. I did the first, what was called a Beeline. It's called Beeline Jam, and it was in Bournemouth, and it was an all-day hip-hop event. And I did 3 of those in Bournemouth. And then the actual venue closed down. So I was looking for an alternative venue, and the Bristol venue came up, and subsequently done 6 events at the Bristol venue, which have all been pretty good. So yeah, I suppose to answer your question, I've got quite a long history of promoting, going way back to the 90s, putting on different events. But for me at this sort of stage, it was more about creating an environment that I know that our demographic would sort of love to be in. So not only is it, you're surrounded by fellow like-minded people, but also, there's records to buy, there's art going on, there's live performances, and sort of just creating and crafting what I would consider to be that sort of perfect environment for me anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's a proper event, and isn't it? And like you say, it's almost bringing together all the elements of hip hop, with the music, the emceeing, the art, the breaking, and that's what it's all sort of built on. And I mean, I was only there sort of Friday and early a bit on the Saturday, but by all accounts, it was a brilliant event, and it was great to come down and hang out and play.
Absolutely.
A great venue.
Thank you for coming down. It's really appreciated. And the Friday, which was the 45 night, is always we've done that since day one actually, and it's always been a kind of like the warm up party, but it's always ended up being the kind of the most drunken night of them all, really. We always said we're just going to hold it down for the first night, and we never do. It's
like going to a festival, isn't it? You say you're going to take it easy on the first night, and it never ends up that way, does it? So
no, not at all.
Dave, we're just going to talk about one more thing, and then we'll get into some of the other issues. So, Dave, you've done quite a lot of sets recently for the 45 Kings, and one of the best things is your sort of overlays and your background and stuff. Can you tell us? You're telling me, and obviously we can see it in the background. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works with your green screen and your virtual green screen, and then we can move on after that?
Yeah, sure, man. So behind me here, you can see my little home studio. There's point at it properly. That's the front-facing camera. Then there's the overhead camera. There's 2 front lights, microphone. There's a sound mixer behind the turntables, and basically I use a virtual green screen product. It's called XSplit. And rather than obviously trying to fit in a green screen here, a physical one, I use a virtualized one. It's paid for software. It works reasonably well. It's not there's still some glitches in it, but it works pretty well. And then quite literally, I just come up with a concept so coffee and donuts is relatively easy a concept to come up with a visualization scene for. It's basically a coffee bar or a bar with a coffee machine in it somewhere. And I just go and find an image that I like. I chop the image up so that it's got the bar in front of the actual background. I plonk myself between the two. And through the wonders of the technology, it allows me to look like I'm standing behind the bar.
Yeah. And it looks dope.
I've played around with OBS for going on 5-6 years now. I started looking at it way before we got put in lockdowns and stuff. But I'd never really done anything with it because it wasn't used very often for stuff. I started playing with it more just to record DJ sets at home to put on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I didn't have all the stuff. And over the years, I've just gathered everything. So I've got physical green screens we can do. I've got the virtual ones now. But the virtual one's great because it means I can just, as it looks there, I don't change anything from what you see there apart from power the kit on.
Yeah.
And away we go. it's great.
And it's amazing, isn't it? How, I mean, obviously you've got your text a little bit further forward than mine, but it's amazing how we've all become sort of broadcasters in our own studios, bedrooms, front lounges or whatever. And we go all around the world, and you always see obviously the front bit, and it's nice to see the background as to the backstage as to how it works.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way technology is developed still blows my mind. I mean, I work in IT. I see it every day, but it still blows my mind that I can sit here with not expensive kit. I mean, nothing here was that expensive to buy, and I can do a broadcast using green screen.
Yeah,
it's just like it's like that was big budget Hollywood stuff. It was now we can sit and do it in our house.
Yeah, it's and it's only just started, really. As well. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people are doing in the next sort of year or 2 years, as we sort of go on. And one point that Rob's made, not an M1 Mac for streaming though.
Well, that's Mac users,
I know you're a Windows user, so yeah. Okay, that's it's great to hear. How it sort of works in the background, because obviously we've all watched your streams and the overlays are brilliant, and it's so good. But let's move on a little bit now. So one of the issues you told me about that you'd like to talk about is you have some sleep issues that obviously sort of then filter through into sort of mental health issues as well. So talk to us about the sleep issues. When did you first start having issues? How did it affect you? What are you doing?
As far back as I can remember.
Are we talking
honestly, as far back as I can remember. I can remember being like 15 and having sleep issues, just where I'm just like tired. I've gone to sleep at night and I woke up the next day and I'm still tired. I'm as tired, if not tireder than I was. And as years have gone on, they've gone in and out. So as I briefly mentioned before we started this, that the last 4 weeks have been progressively worse. So what happened is, like last night, for example, I went to my bed nice and early because we had to get up for the show.
Yeah.
I fell asleep. I woke up an hour later, and then it took me another hour and a half to fall asleep again. Then I woke up again. Then I drifted off. Then I woke up. Then I drifted off. Woke up, drifted off. Then I just got up at the back at 5. But that's all right if you do it maybe once or twice. But to have that going on for 4 or 5 weeks,
yeah,
it drains you. So you can't be bothered. Like I don't have any energy to really go out and do anything. When you're really tired and you're exhausted, let's step back. Even if I went to bed tonight and I actually slept for 8 hours, which would be a miracle, but if it happened, I would still be knackered tomorrow because I've got all the build up of the past where I haven't slept. So, and when you're tired, I mean, the way I am is that when I'm tired, I don't necessarily want to speak to people. I don't want to deal with people. I just want solitude.
Yeah,
that's the way I am. That's how I'm built. It's about solitude, and there's not. I can't specifically put anything on. It's not that I'm stressed or anything at the moment. I've had it through stress in the past, but this is not from stress. This is just I'm in a cycle with it just now, and it's not clearing for me. So I've got to go and see the doctor and see what we can move on and help with this thing. But what it does is it starts to, for me anyway, what it does is it gives me too much time to sit sometimes and get in my own head.
Yeah.
So you start to I've always been someone who overanalyzes things. I've always been anxious. I've always had anxiety. Like when I was younger, but I didn't know what anxiety was. I mean, I don't even know if it was used as a term back then. It's not something that was discussed. So it's something that I've lived with, and I've learned to use anxiety to my benefit.
Okay, that's interesting.
And as I've got older, I've realised that's what it was. So, for example, when I was younger, I used to play football, and I used to be a goalkeeper.
Right.
And I'm not the tallest person in the world, but 9 times out of 10, people would not get anything past me. Right? I was, not to blow my own trumpet, but I was a pretty good goalkeeper for the level I played. And if I didn't have the butterflies in my stomach, which was my anxiety and stuff like that, if I didn't have that during a game, before a game, during a game, I knew I wouldn't have a good game. Because I needed that to feed myself to actually play properly. And it was as I got towards when I was really probably mid-20s to my 30s that I started to actually understand it more. That's kind of what I fed from and turned it round from the nerves, as I called it, that turned it into a positive by making it. That was the energy I used to play. And I did the same with DJing when I got back into DJing properly 2014-15, when I started playing gigs again through Playbar. I had that anxiety before playing because you've gone from just playing here to yourself to playing for a room, and you're actually responsible for making people have a good time. So, you know, as a lot of people do, I put pressure on myself, and no one can put any more pressure on me than I put on myself, and I've always done that. But I learned to use that and put it into the work I was doing. So I took my anxieties, and I've had the moments where it's like, I can't do this, I can't go and play this, I can't do this, can't do that. And then you take that and you turn it around, and you actually have a blast. You know, you have a great time. And I've said that to other people who other DJs that suffer from anxiety as well before they play. I said, you've got to take that. You've got to, you've got to try and take your anxiety and that nervous energy and build it into what you do and use it to your benefit. You know, it's one of the things, because if you can learn to do that, it's beneficial. But the sleep issues can have, going back to my sleep issues, they can have detrimental effects by the sense that if you get into your own head, then there's no worse place to be sometimes. You know, I've how long's this show? You know, like there's many things have happened in my life over my 48, almost 49 years that have had an impact on how I am now and my mental health. So I have an issue with my one of my legs. When I was 6 months old, a doctor put an injection into my left buttock, which went into my sciatic nerve on my left leg, and he screwed up my leg. So I've always been different from everybody else in that way. So I've had to live with that, and that obviously when I was younger and stuff used to, without doubt, I was depressed. But it wasn't called depression back then, or no one knew about it as depression. And like where I was, you know, you didn't get counselling, you didn't get any of that sort of stuff, as far as I'm aware.
Over the years, have you found things that have helped you sort of get through some of the worst times? I mean, you talked about debilitating lack of sleep and stuff. Have you done things that kind of take you down a road where you promoting more natural sleep because of the, you know, do exercise or something like that that sort of helped you be naturally tired? Or
yes, Simon, totally. So look, as hard as it is to go out and exercise, and like when I'm in a stage like I am just now, it's very difficult for me to have any motivation to go and do exercise.
Yeah, I get that.
But exercise is really good. Punch bags and things like that are really good. I mean, I've never fought boxing, but I mean, I've trained boxing and some MMA stuff, but not really. But and I've got kit here for doing it. So when I can be bothered, I'll go and do that, and you feel a lot better for doing it.
Yeah,
I handwrite a journal every single day.
Yeah,
whether I sit and do it at points through the day, or I sit and do it at night, or however I do it, I try and do it every day. And I used to have insomnia because my mind would just explode into randomness when I would go to bed. So I'd be dog tired. I'd go to my bed, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I'd be wide awake because I'd be thinking, who discovered the potato and what made them decide to boil it?
Okay, so it was more kind of like just random things in your head rather than your head consuming you with like nonsense and scrambled mess. And
I could have both, to be fair. That was just an example I'd thought about before the show. It's just like sometimes my mind would just be completely random on its thought process. It's like, like who discovered the potato and why did they decide to boil it and then mash it, and who decided to pull a carrot out the ground and eat it, this random stuff. But then you get the other stuff where you go deeper into your own head and you start thinking about things that you've done in the past or situations from the past, and it's that's a bit darker for sure. And probably about 5 to 7 years ago is when I started writing a journal. I'd always heard about, have a notepad at the side of you and just write stuff down. But then I started actually handwriting a journal. And that helps that I don't have the issue now of falling asleep. I can go to my bed and fall asleep. The issue is I don't stay asleep.
Right.
And that's partly because I get some issues with my leg when I'm sleeping or trying to sleep.
Do you think there's something triggering that's waking you up? That's
look, without taking up the whole show on my leg or anything like that, it's like it's got a drop foot on it, so I have to wear something that holds my foot up. Otherwise, it gets annoying on the underside of it. The foot's slightly twisted out, so you can't lie down and it doesn't lie flat. So if I lie on my left side, my ankle's up in there. So there's just awkward. And as I've got older, it's kind of got a bit more awkward.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. Well, I mean, it sounds like it's the leg that is causing the issues. Lady Mel's.
That's one part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lady Mel's has suggested something. I don't know if this is something that's relevant. She said, ask for a blood test if you've not already, but ask to have your thyroid checked. I don't know if that's something you've gone down or considered.
It's been done. The doc's done that. Thanks, Lady Mel's.
I think we'll all agree after time when something consumes you for a long periods of time, it's really hard to break that cycle, isn't it? It's very hard to break that cycle because you when you go to bed, you're automatically thinking straight away, I'm going to have trouble sleeping tonight. And by the nature of that, you're going to cause yourself to have that same issue. And it's very difficult to break that cycle. Very, very difficult.
That's exactly what I was like last night, Simon. And the night before. It was like, fall asleep, wake up, then it's like I need to sleep.
But because you
just can't sleep. It's a cycle, and I refuse to take sleeping tablets from the doctor because I live alone, so I have breathing issues as well through my nose because I damaged my nose when I was younger, so one side's more blocked than the other. So I don't breathe well through the night as well, which is part of what happened.
Do you have the odd drink every now? Do you have a drink every now and then?
Nah.
You don't drink at all?
I used to. I've never been someone who drank to fall asleep.
No, but I'm just thinking. Does
it doesn't help me.
I'm not promoting people drinking to help them sleep. I'm just wondering if there's a difference. If you'd had a couple of drinks, was it a different story?
No.
Right.
It doesn't actually make any difference. It actually makes me worse if I've had a drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I used to drink, but nowadays I very rarely drink. And if you have a night out, then basically what happens is I'll fall asleep, but it's not really a sleep. It's more, I call it, it's like falling unconscious.
Yeah.
Because when you wake up, I'm probably twice as tired, if not 3 times more tired than before. So it's just like that lasts for a good 5-6 days.
Yeah.
But look, Simon, that's one thing that people have always sort of said, "I'll have a drink before you," and it's like, well, it doesn't. For me, it just doesn't. Well, I mean, I used to drink. I wasn't alcoholic as such, but I would drink every other night. And when I was in London, it was like every night before you went home, you go to the pub.
I wasn't promoting having a drink. I was just curious.
No.
I was curious to know if there was a difference, sort of like like your relaxed body state as such. So if you'd had a couple of drinks, so you're in a more of a relaxed state, like mentally, if that had helped. But clearly, it's not that.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, it doesn't help.
No,
it's. I know it works with some people. One of the things I've been told about is CBD oil. So I'm going to go and see the doctor this week, and I'm going to speak to him about that and see if it's an option. But yeah, it's just one of these things, It's I'm unrecognizable outside the dancing camel bar.
That's from our man. Thanks for that, Dave. And we'll come back and explore a couple of issues from that. So Simon, I mean, you sort of sent me some details about what you'd like to talk about. One of them is your mental health, how it's affected you, and how you sort of keep it in check. And then there's another issue about working with a record and But let's start with the mental health side of things. How does it affect you, and how do you keep a like you say, check on it?
It's been a really long journey, and bizarrely, for me, it came from absolutely nowhere. When I was 24, I was DJing a lot, and I was doing a lot of martial arts, and I was just doing a lot of stuff, which that's what I'm like as a person. And then one day, my head just, I was talking to somebody, and my head just went bang, and I just felt really sick and really weird, and I had to sort of move away from that scenario to go and sit down and have a drink. And what I didn't realise at the time was I was actually having an anxiety attack, but I didn't really realise that that's what was going on. Right. And this sort of progressively started to happen more and more over the sort of next couple of days. And I really couldn't work out what was going on. So I ended up going to see the doctor about it. And he said, "You've just burnt yourself out. It's mental exhaustion. You need to take a break and see how you get on." And so I took a break, took about 2 weeks out of doing all the mental things that I normally do. And I just felt completely ruined at that point. I was taking a break actually made me... You were talking about being like no energy at all and completely just unable to function. That's what I was like. My head, I was going to bed at night and my head was just scrambled mess and literally lying there, couldn't get to sleep. And so really poor sleep. And then the daytime was absolutely exhausted and the cycle just got worse and worse and worse. So over the years, I suppose I had to find a way to sort of balance my kind of manic behavior, so I don't go to that point where I go over the edge as such. So to me it was a spiral down and then a long kind of work your way out of it. And it took me a long time to sort of find the solutions, the things that work for me. And I mentioned earlier on about exercise and things like that, but I did find that if I was only using my head all the time, I was working in an office and I was just literally using my head all day and not getting out, getting fresh air, then the balance wasn't right for me. I needed to have a good balance of exercise and also using my brain as well, and so that helped. So swimming and things like that, walking and running and skateboard and all the things I did when I was sort of younger, still do, really helped me kind of get that first of all to get that sleep right. Because once I got the sleep right, I then started to sort of feel a bit better of myself. It was just a long journey back, And every now and then, I've taken dips and I've have to sort of put myself back in check again and sort of find my way back out. But yeah, it's an ongoing issue for sure.
And is it something you've done? Obviously, you said that you found exercise was helpful. Is it something that you've done yourself, or did you get any help? Did you have any therapy medication or anything like that, or?
Yeah. So I mean, all of the above, really. I mean, I went when it all first started happening. I just had no clue. I mean, my dad took me for a hearing test, because it was really strange, because the sort of the anxiety was pulling on the muscle, the tension behind the head, and it sort of making me sort of deaf in one ear. And he was like, "Oh, it's from DJ, and you've done something to your ear, you've got an imbalance." And so I was sort of worried about that. What else was going on? Where was I? What were we saying?
Did you get sort of help from?
Oh yeah. So I went for yeah, that's right. So I went to the doctor, said, "Oh, maybe you need to speak to somebody," and it was really strange. It wasn't for me. I'm better off talking to friends than I am going to sit down to some random strangers trying to probe into your past, because it wasn't anything in my past at all. It was the fact that the way that I made up. I needed a good balance, and I just took that too far one way, and my body said, "Nope, you're not doing that anymore. We're going to stop you here. You need to readdress the balance," and sort of. So that didn't really help, and I did a bit of not meditation. What's it called? I forgot what it's called. What's it called when people put you under and you're like,
hypnosis.
Hypnosis. That's it.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of hypnosis, which I thought was quite relaxing, to be honest. It was a bit more like meditation than actual hypnosis. So that I felt that helped a little bit, and what I learned from that was actually, if you just take yourself off, you take your head off to a different place. When you're mental in your head and things are scrambling and you're thinking about loads of things that aren't important at 3 o'clock in the morning, I know you could probably relate to this. Yeah. Is find this place that gives you that sort of peace at that time. So I created, and it's going to sound a bit crazy, but I created a few scenarios in my head that if that happens, then I can sort of take myself to that place, and it gives me a bit of relaxation. So that really helped.
That's interesting, because I mean, so was the hypnosis in terms of trying to retrain your brain so that you weren't anxious, or was it simply?
No, I think it was more to do
what to deal with.
Yeah, well, it was trying to uncover things, but what I learned from it was actually, like I say, being able to kind of put your brain on pause for a second and take you to a place that you can actually relax and think about things a bit more rationally. Because I think what I was really suffering from was this sort of 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. My brain is going 100 miles an hour about, bills, friends, letting people down, doing this, doing that. And you're like, why am I even thinking about this at 3 o'clock in the morning? It's not right. So you can't do anything to help you at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can't do anything until the next day. So it's no point thinking about it then. So I needed to find this sort of technique that allowed me to kind of park that and then to be able to relax again. And bizarrely, ever since that sort of point, I've not had any issues with sleep at all. But when I was going through spells, it really did. The sleeping thing was becoming a problem to the point where I would think about that before I was going to bed, and then it would be an issue because I'd already thought about it. And that's the same with a lot of anxiety, I guess, is you kind of, your brain starts thinking about things ahead of the event and actually causes you a problem ahead of the event.
Yeah.
When actually, if you didn't think about it and you just got stuck in and do it, it's not a problem. Just like what you find when you're really anxious about something and you start going, you kind of, that the anxiety sort of drifts away after a little bit because you've settled into it, if you know what I mean. So it's like we all do it. All human beings do it to different levels. I mean, if you were preparing for a speech, it could absolutely kill you for weeks before the speech, right up to the point where you've got to do it and you think, I might not even be able to do this. And then as soon as you get going, you either do it or you crumble at that point. But it's yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, certainly, some of the work that I do, you just end up just thinking about a particular case or whatever constantly. And like you say, in the middle of the night, you can't do anything about it, and it just goes over and over and over in your head, and then you don't get the sleep, and then you get anxious, and It's very difficult to deal with. Cut Class saying rumination is fixating on the past and worry is fixating on the future. That's that's very true. It's very good point that he's made there. Dave, let's come back to, you've mentioned depression. How's the depression sort of manifested you over and, well, not over and above, but in terms of separate to the sleep issues? You said obviously you don't like going out a great deal and you like your solitude, and obviously you've been in lockdown, so you probably haven't been able to go out, but was it much different to you, obviously being in lockdown and the solitude?
No. Lockdown didn't bother me in the slightest, to be perfectly frank. The only thing with it was that you just couldn't go to the shop whenever you wanted. You had to think about it and obviously plan where you could go. You couldn't just go to a shopping centre if you wanted to or something like that and just buy stuff. So, but generally it didn't bother me too much. I've to some extent, again, I've probably had depression for most of my life. We were never diagnosed back in the day with stuff like that. It's been in the family, I know that. So, and again, there's things that have happened that have perpetuated on that. I had a bad time in my probably late teens into my mid 20s. When I was basically 42 years ago, my dad died, and he died in front of me and my sister. He had a massive heart attack, and you don't get counselling for that when you're in 1979 into 1980. I certainly don't remember there was ever any counselling. It was never talked about. There was never any real discussions about it or anything that I could remember. So, as you get older, it starts to kind of play in your head a bit, and then you start going into your own mind and saying, well, if I'd done this or if I'd done that. And it's impossible. It was a month before my 7th birthday, so there was absolutely nothing I could have done. But it's like, you play through these scenarios, and it's not something you ever forget. So that's always been around. And then obviously I've got the leg issues, which I got the mickey taken at me at school, which causes you depression. Although, again, you don't know it's called depression at that time. So it's kind of, there's that stuff that's perpetuated through it, and as I've got older, I've started to learn how to deal with it. So, I mean, I would never have spoken about this before. Like, even 10 years ago, I would have never spoken about that stuff. So it shows you how far I've come with it. It's still difficult for me as an individual to talk about myself and talk about my situations and things like that. So I'm obviously progressing that I can sit here and talk to you guys quite openly about all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still, these things still play in my mind. These are the sort of things that will jump into my head when I'm having sleep issues. And
I mean, Simon said that obviously he didn't find talking necessarily to a counsellor or therapist was something for him, and obviously it works for some people, it doesn't work. Is that something that you said you've been talking about it for the last 10 years? Have you been speaking?
Can I just interject there? Because quickly, it's not that, I mean, it might be a different matter now. When I was 24, 25, I was like, and there was no old woman that was going to be able to fix me. I needed somebody of my age group that I could speak to. I didn't need somebody, this old granny sitting down saying, "Oh, so you tell me about your past. So what's happened?" And that's, you need people that you can relate to that are of a similar age group that have gone through similar experiences that you can just have open, frank conversations with, because it's not all about stuff that might have happened in the past, or it's
sorry if I misunderstood that.
No, Simon's absolutely spot on there. That's exactly the same with me. It's like to go and sit and talk to someone, it's like I'm not going to say anything.
No.
Mm.
You know, to go and sit in a room and the old adage of sit on it, you know, lie back on the couch and tell me your problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen.
No.
It's not the way I'm built. I'm not built to go and talk to strangers about these things.
No.
Very insular when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think
I always have been and that's obviously built up from what's happened throughout my time. You know, it's like I've not been open with it. I've kept it all to myself, and that built up inside me, which manifested in different ways. So it's got better as I've got older. The way because I understand it better now.
Yeah.
You know, when you're younger, you don't know what it is. You don't know why you feel the way you feel. I mean, I didn't even know what they would have called it back then. If it was called depression, or if it was called something else, or I mean, my anxiety was diagnosed as a nervous stomach at one point.
Right.
When I was young, I was put in hospital for a few days because I just had these pains in my stomach, and they turned around and went, "Oh, it's just a nervous stomach," and it wasn't. It was anxiety.
Yeah,
as we know it now. You know, so it's. I mean, I still go, and I mean, I don't suffer what I would call bad depression, but I still have down moments, as it were. Where you get inside your own head, and then, as I say, for me, it's just like I don't want to deal with other people. I've got to ride through that myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm very, as I say, I'm very insular in the way I don't want to talk to people, and it's always nice when people say, "I'm here if you want to talk to me," etc., etc. You know, like Mr. Love, for example, is always there if we need him. And it's, but for me, it's just like I've got to go through that process. As I say, writing a journal helps a lot.
Yeah, it's just getting it out, isn't it? I suppose, and whether you're
it's getting it out of here.
Yeah, whether you're talking to someone, whether you're writing it down, it's just getting it out, and it just hopefully gives you a bit of a relief because it's out there, and then what you do with it after that is something else. But yeah, I mean, support as always in the chat. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, and then like that's just touching on one of the points with online communities. You know, exactly what's just been said in the chat. You know, that's what's through COVID and stuff like that. We've all got into this online stuff. The online community is great. Yeah, everyone's there for everyone. You know.
Yeah, we've been very lucky and fortunate with it, and who knows where we'd all be if this wasn't going on, but everyone is so supportive, and certainly through doing this show, and through the other stuff with the 45 Kings and 45 Day, it just shows that people are there for each other and they care. I don't think any of the comments or anything that people are saying is false. People aren't trying to pretend. Everyone is very genuine, and obviously if you want to pick up the phone to someone that they are genuinely going to help, listen to you, talk to you, help you through it, and I think that's amazing. And Double P, like he says, this community's helped him get better. I mean, he said the other day that his the CBT he's been doing has been really helpful, and his numbers are down, and he's got his first live in real life gig coming up in a week or so's time, and he's the person he sort of inspired the show in the first place. So
shout out to Double P, man. He's had it hard. He's getting there.
Yeah, he's done really well, and he was one of the first guests. Well, it was the first.
Isn't it amazing when you do start speaking to people, how many people have been through a similar thing? There's so many people out there that are suffering in silence, that don't want to talk about it, don't know how to deal with it, and it's a shame there isn't more things like this where people can communicate and unravel some of the things that are going on, because the people aren't alone, not at all.
No, totally, Simon. I mean, the stigma that's still attached to it as well. There's still a stigma. I mean, it's like someone had depression or any form of mental illness used to be classified as crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how does that help anybody, you know? And it's still, there is still a stigma from that, even to this day.
I think it's also one of the differences is that there's a mental health condition which may be diagnosed and maybe something you can get treatment for, but there's mental health issues which are two very different things. And I think it's only now that people are realizing that, you know, mental health is sometimes your mental health is good, sometimes it's bad, and you know there's no something, but it doesn't mean, like you say, that you're crazy or mental or you know words. You know, it's just something you're trying to deal with. In your own head, it's just difficult dealing with the situation. And you know, we've all been through different things. I mean, the last 18 months has been, you know, really strange time, but I think it's impacted on everyone, and it's good that people are able to sort of talk about what's been going on.
I think everyone reacts in different ways, don't they? And that's the biggest issue with it, and identifying what's going on is that there are so many different variants of what it can be. Like for me, it was ever so kind of debilitating in terms of energy levels, and I think you've been the same there. But for other people, it's different. They're maybe more extreme the other way. You know, they've got to burn off that energy and they're acting a bit more, you know, crazier than normal. Or so yeah. I think there's different levels, and that's why it's so hard to kind of diagnose with some people, because it's the variations are so different.
Yeah, and it's individual to each person.
Yeah.
You know, there's very few people you'll find with the same situation.
Yeah.
The mind is a wonderful place.
Yeah. It is, and and I think there should be a lot more about, you know, learning how to control your own mind and your own thoughts and emotions, because ultimately, that's what, for me personally, that's one of the things that's helped, is once you've learned how to control, you know, some of the things that you think about, and don't let them control you, then you can start to move forward a little bit more. I mean, I found situations, like I said to you, we're talking about, you know, doing presentations and things like that, and it just consumes you for, you know, for days before you're doing it, and it kind of ruins the event. And you know, there's other times when you don't even think about it, you do it on the spot and it's no problem at all. And it's sort of just working out how to kind of manage that anxiety ahead of that event. And I think, you know, the more you do things, the more you can feel better about doing things. And if you haven't done something before, just be honest. I haven't done this before. I'm a bit nervous, and it softens up a little bit. It's
yeah, exactly.
I think, yeah.
Simon, obviously you said you wanted to talk about the record you did with Whirlwind D, and also the video. Do you want to talk us through that?
So I've actually got it to hand, and there's a video online. I think it's well worth looking up. It was we wanted to touch on this subject a number of years ago, where we found, I mean, I can name a few people, unfortunately, that have you know, taken their own lives, and I think we've all over the years you know, there's a few people in the Facebook community that are no longer there, but their profiles are still there, and it's because of this horrible disease, which is mental health and mental illness. And so we wanted to highlight it and produce a record that kind of discussed it. And and there it is. It's a track called a record called Falling. There's a video called which is called Nothing's Better. If you look that one up on YouTube, you'll see it. And it's just about male depression and suicide. Cheery subjects.
Oh yeah, but I mean, obviously they need to be discussed, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a video as well, you know. So tell us about the video, how the video came about.
Well, this is Dudley Whirlwind's project. So I produced one of the tracks and was involved with one of the videos. But as a project, it was important for us. We discussed it beforehand to do something that highlighted some of the issues with male suicide and mental illness. That was it, really. That was it.
And what sort of effect did it have? You know, did you get some good feedback from it?
Yeah, a lot of people reached out to Dudley and sort of said, you know, really appreciate, thank you for putting this out, thank you for highlighting the issues, and there was a huge amount of support for it.
Yeah, because I think that, like we said earlier, it's the fact that people are talking about it, and it's giving a forum, and people being able to be open and honest about what's going on, and anything like that has got to be a good thing. It may not, we may not prevent someone getting to that stage, but at least if they feel they can talk to someone, then hopefully it will open the lines of communication, and you never know.
Well, as I said earlier on, I mean, a lot of people, when they're in that scenario, they think that they're alone. They think that it's only happening to them, and it really isn't. There's so many people, obviously, that are going through the same thing, and it's never too late to talk if you can.
Yeah.
Or, and people should also be aware of the people around them, and be mindful of that other people have got stuff going on, and we live in this crazy rat race where everyone's striving for perfection and to be this or to be that. We don't stop for a second and say, actually, what's going on with this guy? How come he's not quite the same today? Let's give him a bit of a break. It's just we need to be more aware of our fellow human beings, and give them a bit more of a break.
Yeah. And like you say, and we've discussed this before, I think, on the show. It's very easy, if someone says, how you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm okay, or not bad, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's that second question, really. You need to say, well, but are you actually okay?
Yeah.
And it's hopefully at that stage that people will then open up a little bit more, or whatever. But yeah, and like you say, it's just sharing. I bumped into an old friend today who's been having some issues health-wise, and he was talking about it's also affected his mental health, and he started counselling, and it was a bit weird for him going to the first one. I said, it's all right, I've done some counselling, and it helped me, and it's just, I think, hearing that someone else has been through what you've been through, or shares some of that, it is so helpful. And I think it shows, like you say, with it, people aren't alone. And that people are here to help, and like you say, it's a great community.
Well, one of the big things is when you're deep in the rabbit hole, let's call it, it's hard to see that there's a way out. So when you see that other people have made it out, then that there is an answer, and if you work hard enough for it, you will get there. And I think that what worries people, and the reason they unfortunately take their own lives, is they can't see that end. They can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see any way out. And sometimes it just takes a few people to say, well, okay, look, let's try and work it. Let's work at this together.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because people do hit that point, and even if they've got families and loved ones and kids, but they do feel there is nothing, and it's difficult to know if part of it is the world that we live in, where we sort of expect things to be there straight away. And again, talking to my friend today, he was saying, well, he'd been told that his health worries would be better in, say, 6 months' time, but then he got to 6 months' time and they weren't. So in his head, he was like, oh, this is never going to get there. So it's setting yourself up almost not to fail, but you get in your head, well, this has got to be like this by this date or by this time, and then when something isn't quite what you expect it, you think, oh, well, and I think that's when people sort of give up or part.
No, you're right. I mean, and then there's so many people that believe there is a particular route or a path that life should follow. And if for whatever reason, you haven't got married, or you haven't had children, or you have had children, lost, life can throw funny curveballs at you, and it's not always going to be the same. So, I think people get really twisted about the fact that their life's not going to the plan that they think it should do. Where really it's, you can get so consumed by what you should be, or where you should be, or what your peers think of you. It's not important. As long as you're happy, that's the most important thing. You need to follow your own path and keep working at your own path.
Yeah, and I think one of the worrying things that's probably coming out is the next generation. Certainly with, well, they're probably not using Instagram or what any of the stuff we're using, but it's all the online stuff, and obviously seeing how they should present themselves, or what they should look like, or what they should have, and all the rest of it. So I think that's something that's possibly going to kick in a bit further down the line, because there's going to be a lot of people who just aren't going to.
Do you not feel that's a problem now? Like I feel that there's a lot of people that portray a certain life online, but the reality is something completely different. It's like there's two things going on. You ever see that film with Bruce Willis where he's lying in the chair and he's like his character's walking around in this virtual world? But it's this perfect person, but the actual he's an old guy in a chair, and it's a bit like what Facebook and what social media is like nowadays. It's people are portraying these perfect world, which is making the problem even worse because people are fighting to try and prove that they are also living in this perfect world. It's quite a over-consuming environment that we're in. How many 45s do you have? Yeah.
Coming back to 45s. Yeah. How many you own? Which ones you own?
Yeah. That's right.
But yeah. And and like Lady Mel said, I'm married, no children, not bothered until someone points it out, and they do. People need to, not point things out. And then like Rob says, he's worried for his son for sure. And then my daughter's 7, and I think what's going to be going on in another 10, even another 5 years. It's
there is no right or wrong way to live this life. Is there?
No, and you just never know. And there's so many factors outside of your control that whatever even if you planned everything to the last minute details, it's never going to happen.
No.
Right. Well, thanks both of you. Really interesting. As Rob's mentioned 45s, let's sort of move on to 45s. So Dave, have you got some 45s for us that lift the spirits? What have you got then? What do you want to start with?
I'm going to start in the order that they're lying. So I've got the theme from Shaft, Mr. Isaac Hayes.
Classic. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Try and make this work so that I'm doing it the right way.
I'll tell you to do it. Yeah, we can see it. It's theme from Shaft. Yeah, and on the stack.
There we go.
Nice bright yellow label there.
That's the unscratched copy.
Yeah. So why that one? Why do you like that? I mean, I love it, but why do you like that one particularly?
It just builds that sort of just from that first note as it starts. It just has that energy about it. It's just got that upbeat tempo. Makes you want to be in a 70s movie. You want to be Shaft, basically. It's
damn right.
It's just for me and the music I love and all that sort of stuff. It just has that energy and vibe around it.
Yeah.
That just lifts me every time you hear it. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's been sampled so many times as well.
Cut Class is asking what's on the B side of that release that you've got.
Cafe Reggio's.
Okay. I don't know.
And that's on the B side of the other copy I have as well. So
yeah,
which has got a black label.
Cool, good choice. What's number 2?
So it's a classic.
That's the point, yeah.
Where's the thingy?
Move it across a little bit.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Mr. Herbie Hancock and Rocket. Now
is that a promo as well?
No. Is it? Oh no, it's a promo, yeah.
Okay.
Well spotted. I'd never noticed that.
Is it an OG promo then? Is it from?
Yeah, it's CBS.
Mine doesn't look like that.
You didn't even know.
This record is manufactured for the purpose of promotion only. It remains the property of CBS Records Australia Limited and is not for resale.
You better give it back to him then.
I'll be speaking to Dr. Diggins about that.
Yeah.
And that obviously goes back into...
that's a classic. It's just the opening stabs of that track, and the scratching.
Yeah, it takes me... As Simon touched on, which I never actually spoke about really, but the breakdancing scene from probably 84, 85, which is... I don't really classify that as me getting into hip hop as such because it was more electro that we had, but it's that whole scene, and that's the 45 I've got that reminds me and sums up that whole scene. When we used to have
it reminds me of BMX Beat, that one. Do you remember when they played it on BMX Beat.
Yeah. And that was how we got to hear the music.
Mm.
You know, and obviously you watched Beat Street, you watched break dance and stuff like that. That was the way that we really found out about this kind of music. So it's just full of memories and energy for me, that song.
Yeah.
And it's also the one that really wanted me to learn how to scratch.
Okay.
Fundamentally, it was like, well, how are they doing that?
Yeah.
And like Simon probably ruined the turntable at home, you know. Belt-driven turntable with a rubber mat. And I'm going like this, going, how do they make that noise? Needles going across it. And,
I guess, but also back then, obviously, no internet, no sort of video on demand. You know, you wouldn't, and unless you had recorded it on your VHS or your Betamax, you know, you couldn't just rewatch it and learn like people can do now.
Yeah, I mean, it was like. I mean, I'll go just briefly. I'll touch on back in the 90s when I had when I eventually got turntables at home. I wanted to learn how to cut and scratch, but I had no idea how to set them up properly because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have YouTube. I didn't have any friends as such that DJ'd, so I had two turntables and a mixer, but I didn't know about slip mats and stuff at the time. You
like this story. My music teacher at school, he was obsessed with new music, and he brought in a videotape of Buffalo Girls and a turntable, and he showed it in our lesson, and he was showing this new sort of manipulation of a record, and we would all have a go in the music lesson about trying to scratch on this turntable, and it was that was big late. That would have been 83, and that was in our music lesson. Unbelievable.
Yeah, we had to play the recorder. Free blind mice, see how they run.
I want to go to Simon's school.
that was a useful tool to learn, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because I think now they are doing some. I think Funky Chef does some teaching online, but I can't remember. Someone else I was reading about was maybe Paul Crash Slaughter going into schools with like little portable decks, you know, the little and it's amazing, you know, because it's now become an instrument that kids can learn in school. It's amazing the heights it's reached, you know, even in that. And here we go, cut class. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. He's taught a turntablist class for kids. And then we've got Rob saying he's still trying to find out how to set them up, and DJ Fade saying he had to learn to cut by ear.
I mean, when I eventually started learning how to cut, which was only probably 2015, I really started playing around. I was watching some of my friends DJ, and I was like, well, how are they doing that? I looked at some YouTube like Qbert lessons and stuff, and I don't have the patience to sit there and watch someone and then try and cut over the back. So I did it the old school way and was like, how are they actually manipulating the record to the point where they're making that sound?
Yeah.
And I came home and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. I mean, I literally practiced every day for 6 months, and I still practice now. That's why I'm not so good at it. But it's like when you hit it and you discover that's how they do it, and then you learn how to do it, you get a great sense of achievement from it. You know, you've not just copied someone else in the sense of watch the video and learn how to do it that way. You've actually broken it down yourself and learned your way of doing it. You know, you've gone back to the old way of that guy's doing something. How's he doing it? And you worked it out.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's great. What have you got for number 3 then? So
this is a classic dance record.
Okay.
This one reminds me from that probably the mid 80s, 85, 86 and 87, when there was a high energy resurgence with like disco and stuff like that. And this one is Sylvester, Do You Want to Funk?
Okay.
And it's not very clear on there, but and that just takes me back to the sort of the start of my journeys with dance music, really.
Mm.
And it's always a song that it's a high energy vibe. You know, it's just like it's up there. It gets me want to, you know, move a bit, and
Well,
it's just
cool.
that's the point of the music, you know.
Yeah.
No Mr. Love, not Agadoo.
Not Agadoo, no. Much better than that. But I can't work out. Yeah, that's amazing tune, Lady Mauser. So thanks, Dave. That's 3 good choices. We're going to move over to Simon and see what you've got. What you've got for us tonight?
Well, it's an almost impossible task, isn't it, to pick
hard,
3 45s?
Sorry.
I could have gone back to Beat Streets and all of those, but I'm gone for all new ones. I thought that would just sort of throw a different dynamic on it, actually. So one of the first one I'm going to show you is Gunshot, Sulphur.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've always been a big fan of UK rap, and especially Gunshot. And obviously they finished their last record a number of years ago. And when I heard there was a new one on the horizon, I was sort of dead curious to know what it was going to be like. And when it came out, absolutely blew my mind, and still does. So yeah, big up to Mercury and the boys at Naked 8 Records over in Germany for producing a fine slab of wax.
Yeah.
That's a nice one. I like it.
Good choice, yeah.
Class, productions class, records class. It's everything about it's class. Yeah, love it. Can't get it back in sleeve now. Oh well.
I do that on streams all the time. I try and get it back in.
Yeah. Number 2?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, we talked about DJ Crash Slaughter earlier on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've all got this.
Yeah.
It's
such a great.
And to me, I mean, I was lucky enough to have the test pressing on. I love Filmo's tune. I love Paul's production. But when he brought this out as a record with the artwork, and I was just blown away. I don't think anyone's done anything like this before.
I haven't seen
anything like that.
No, and it's. I mean, just the amount of time that must have taken just to put that artwork together and then put it in that package.
Junior Disparal kind drew all the different bits. I mean, it's just. I mean, these guys. I know they're big fans of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And they've absolutely hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's a better piece of packaging in 7-inch history.
I can't. And even the black vinyl version, it's dope as well. I mean,
yeah.
No, he's definitely smashed it with that one. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, this one's shameless self-promotion, I'm afraid.
Go for it. That's fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
We released this one
like
week before last, so it's fresh out on Beeline Recordings. It's my good friend Criztoz featuring Chrome and me on the cuts, and the artwork's by a legendary writer from Bristol called Chio. And it's a good little party rocker. If anyone's got a copy, I'm assuming that a couple of you might have. Really proud of that one. Can I sneak one more in?
Yeah, go for it. And before you say that, just to let people know, we've got Chrome is coming on All Back to Mine a week on Tuesday. So next week's Constance K, and then Chrome's on the week after. And I think he'll be playing some of the stuff that he's on. So that may well get played on that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just sneaking in a fourth, only because this is really hot topic at the minute.
Yeah, of course.
And
nice one.
But there's nothing to say about that, really. I mean, that says it all for me, really. Fuck cancer. Rest in peace, Dale.
Yeah.
Good guy. So, I mean, this shows you what can be achieved when the chips are really, really down, and you're thinking to yourself, "I'm going to achieve my goals." And he did this. He did that. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty strong achievement for somebody that's lying on their deathbed, I would say.
Yeah,
fair play, inspirational.
Definitely,
we are going to big up Dale, and I mean I played it on my stream on Saturday, and I know that Sideshow played it, and we will play it. It's just going to constantly be played because one, it's an amazing song, but it's just what it means, and like you say, that what he's achieved in the last sort of year of his life in such adversity. It's like you say, there's no words. It's so sad.
There's no. I mean, and Chrome's first sentence on it is just unbelievable. I mean, the hairs on my arms standing up. I want to say hello to my sister, give her a hug, and tell her that I miss her. It's like, wow.
Yeah. It's such
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Powerful.
So, actually, bit of information if anyone's going. It's Dell's funeral next Monday.
Yeah, I saw. I think Paul Crash Slaughter put the details up. I think on a post as well. So if anyone is in the area, then
I shall be flying up for it. See Paul.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, not at all. I mean,
that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. In fact, I like I said before, I didn't know him closely at all. I'd sort of followed his story on Instagram and everything that had been going on with his life, and I did sort of reach out to him to see if he wanted to come on this a little while ago, but I think that there was just too much going on, and I think although he was putting a lot of it out on Instagram, I don't think he was necessarily in a position to sort of sit down and talk about what was going on. But he achieved so much, and he really did. He really did. For all of us, life is very short, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And for him, I think it was a space of just over a year, wasn't it, from first diagnosis to sort of
Well, I remember we were talking on the phone this time last year when he'd just been for his sort of first sort of test as such, and he had his first operation, and that was horrendous for him. He had a few teeth taken out, and it was massive deal for anyone to go through that. He was hoping to go through that amount of pain, losing part of his face, that he would be able to sort of continue to live. And then of course the bad news came in from that point onwards, which was devastating really. But the amount of people that knows his name, he reached out to, and the impact he made, I think is incredible. It's a really positive. It is a really positive impact in a really sad situation.
No, thank you for that, and thank you for all your selections. But that's definitely an important record. I can't really follow that, I've picked some out. I do it for each of the show. I've sort of gone for a theme of sort of covers. One is Cow Rhythm and Steel Band do lots of great covers, and this is let me move that across.
Here we go.
Explosive, which is re-sampling or re-editing the ones that Dr. Dre used for one of his tracks, and I used to play that quite a lot as the first opening track of a lot of my sets when I was DJing out a couple of years ago, and it's just it's a great track. Next one's Prince Fatty, and this one that's the Gin and Juice.
Yes,
and then Shimmy Yar. Hold on.
Oh, have you got Insane in the Membrane as well?
Yeah, I've got most of it. So that's the terrible Shimmy Yar on that side. And then Gin and Juice, and then Insane in the Membrane as well. So Prince Fat is an awesome producer.
Brilliant.
He's been crowdfunding for his new studio. So hopefully there'll be some new music coming out from him soon. And then the last one is Hugh Masekela. You Keep Me Hang On, which is a cover, and
I love that photo. I love that photo.
It's a great one, isn't it? It's a great cover as well. So again, it's just one of those tracks that builds and builds and builds, and obviously the original, and he just does a completely slightly different take on it. It's all good.
Do you guys ever look at album covers, and then do you ever see those videos where they sort of go to the locations and they put up the cover and the location? I love that. I absolutely love that.
Melting Pot, we are seeing some of your comments. Yeah, you're here. I think you're new to the channel. Yeah, Constance K. And no, they're really cool. I think there's some that I think there's a Smiley Culture one, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the Paul's Boutique as well, isn't there? There's someone gone back to that, but yeah, they are really.
There's a really good Run the MC one online, like this guy goes around to all the locations. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, good. So Melting Pot is saying evening, Simon. How
you doing?
Some you know. Right, so let's move to the last sort of section of today, and this is the confectionery corner. It started off with Danny Bounce asking a silly question about whether Nice biscuits are called Nice or Nice, and it's sort of grown from there. But you know, it's sort of a nice way to sort of end the show. So, Dave, I think I've had a sneak preview of what you've got, but what have you got for us this evening?
Being a Scotsman and being able to get some it's not really confectionery, but it's biscuits from back home. So we just quickly we got some Tunnocks caramel wafers and Tunnocks tea cakes.
Yes,
right. Them and Iron Brew will keep me in Australia.
How easily can you get them in?
They're in the normal supermarket.
They're in the normal. Okay, all right.
Yeah, they have a little British section, one of the racks, the shelf sections. So you can get Tunnocks. I can get cans Iron Brew, double deckers, Whispers, Fries, chocolate creams.
Can you get crunchies? Can you get crunchies?
You can get fruit gums. There's a wee label saying it's imported.
I was going to say, what is that? It looks just like the packets we got here.
So it's fruit. These are import. You don't get these apart from import.
How expensive is that packet?
$5, so about £2.50.
It's about £1 here, but I suppose I've got to go a long way.
Well, how much is a can of Coke in the UK? 50 pence or something?
No, it's a bit more than that. Yeah.
Is it £1 now? Is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, Iron Brew's not so bad. It's like $2.10 for one of them. So. But yeah, so we do have crunchies.
Brilliant.
But this is not a UK crunchy. This is an Australian crunchy, right? And yes, Rob. Yes. So obviously there is the debate about which one's better. So I'm going to put it to rest, right? Once and for all. In Australia, a violet crumble is better. Because the chocolate's not the same on the crunchy, right? But I would say a UK crunchy is better than a violet crumble.
I've never seen a violet crumble ever.
It's a lighter version of a crunchy.
It's
not as orange.
Yeah, we had Mr. Lob on the show, and we started a debate because he showed violet crumble, and I was like, "Well, that's just a crunchy." And he's like, "No, it's not." And then we managed to get some violet crumble in B&M home stores or whatever it's called, B&H home stores. And basically, I think the honeycomb in the violet crumble is better than the crunchy, but the chocolate's better on the crunchy than the violet crumble. So if you took them apart and put them together again, you'd have an amazing bit of chocolate.
Rob spat the dummy. He's left.
He's out. He's saying he's out.
I've got one more as well.
Oh no, just don't upset Rob.
Oh, this won't upset him.
Oh, what are they?
Jaffas. So this is like a Terry's chocolate orange covered in a crispy shell.
Like a sort of
but
M&M,
they're tiny.
Like chocolate orange M&M. M&Ms.
In essence, yeah. So it's like a chocolate orange M&M, but they're not.
Are they small or big?
They're like.
Oh yeah, so like almost like an M&M, but a chocolate orange M&M.
Yeah, but it's like a Terry's chocolate orange covered in a crispy shell, and an M&M stuff.
Turn to rubbish this chat. Sorry, Rob. Rob's coming back on the show one day. Great choices. I've never seen those Jaffas before, so that's good.
I didn't think they'd been on, so I thought I would get those ones.
Yeah,
I don't eat that many of them, so it's.
They'll last. That's great. Thanks, Dave. Simon, what have you got for us?
Well,
yeah, classics. Yeah,
absolute classic. The opal fruit, man.
But opal fruits.
No. That's what I mean. It's opal fruits. How long have you had them for? Are they still in date?
Limited edition. They've brought opal fruits back out. That's why I had to pick them up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Starburst now, aren't they?
They're called opal fruits. But interestingly, when I scanned it through the till, it said Starburst. I nearly made a complaint because obviously they're called opal fruits, made to make your mouth water. And
it's like the old Snickers, isn't it? It was Marathon, wasn't it?
Marathon, yeah. That's right.
We are all showing our age now.
Brilliant. But I was going to pick up some Chewits because when I was a kid on the way to school, I spent all my money on Chewits. I buy 6 packets of Chewits with my dinner money. But I saw opal fruits. I'm like, I have to buy opal fruits, surely. Yeah. School class. I've got a few pieces actually. School classic.
Yeah.
Curly whirly. Cannot go wrong with a curly whirly.
Yeah. Have they got smaller though?
That's a small version, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not.
When they're about the size of a 12-inch ruler.
Yeah. I would think so. Yes.
I think that's probably what they were, weren't they?
They promote this as only 97 calories. You see. Another 80s classic.
Whisper.
Can't go wrong.
There was a limited edition one, which was the one I had last time, which was a hazelnut one. It was a Whisper Gold hazelnut flavour. And it actually tasted a bit like a praline, but that was good. This is a classic.
Might be controversial. It used to come in a long, thin packet, but I love these.
Yeah. Oh, munchies are the best. Yeah. I used to eat them by the packet.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
They're much smaller in that.
Yeah. Got one more thing to show you. My crisp at the moment.
Oh,
Max Strong jalapeno cheese. Absolutely incredible crisp.
Okay, that's
can't go wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? It's one thing over here. You don't get a mad choice of crisp flavors.
Yeah.
Like, they don't do bacon flavour crisps here.
Don't they?
Right.
That's like a normal packet of crisps. They don't do it.
Really? That's mental. We got literally everything. Well,
you've got ready salted salt and vinegar, cheese and onion. Then they have chicken and barbecue, and maybe a couple of other things.
I mean,
it's the standards, but they don't have the range that we would have back home. There's no Monster Munch or anything like that.
You know, we're going for a bit of a crisp shortage over here at the moment. I don't know why, but we've had obviously the toilet roll shortage and the petrol shortage. We are seriously going for a crisp shortage at the moment. Last 2 weeks in the shops, there's literally been no crisps.
Man, what's it going to be next?
I don't know. I'm well stocked up now, so
that's fine. Okay, yeah. Rob saying you've got kangaroo crisps instead. I assume he's joking about that. I know. Great choices, thanks, Simon. Right, so I look at these. Right, these are empty because I just can't.
You've eaten them.
I love them. Yeah, the Mike and Ike, but these are mixed sour. I found them at my local post office up the shop, up the road, and I was like, "Oh, where'd you get these?" And he goes, "Oh, we get a container of American stuff every now and again." And I was like, "Great." These I saw today, so I haven't even tried these, but they look interesting. Thanks, Lady Mel. Actually, so these are Kit Kat Pops. So they look like little round chocolates with Kit Kat in the middle. So they look quite interesting.
It's like a Kit Kat Malteser.
Yeah, sounds like it. And then this, we had Toblerone on a show. I can't remember who it was now, but I was talking about the Poundland version. So this is Twin Peaks.
Wow.
It is the dark chocolate version, but it is just like
just Toblerone.
How big is that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a proper sized Toblerone, really, and that's for £1. But then, so they've made it slightly different. So obviously it's not quite Toblerone, but they've
really cut the top off.
It's weird.
Yeah. But they do a normal one and a white chocolate and a dark chocolate. I think they even do a fruit and nut one, but a pound.
Yeah.
And it's good. And it's good.
We mentioned Maltesers a minute ago, but I mean, Maltesers in boxes of celebrations are like the best Maltesers you can buy.
Yeah. They are the best ones, aren't they? They
are
really big.
I mean, it'd be great if you just did a whole box of those.
Maybe you should suggest it.
I've suggested it.
Yeah. That's great. I think we're there. Thank you so much, both of you. It's been an amazing show. I'm just going to set the raid going, and then we'll say goodbye. I think we're going to go and see DJ Bill in Brazil.
I'm going to start working.
I know. Sorry. For everyone who doesn't know, Decal's in Sydney, and it's what is it now?
8:30. No?
8:30?
Yeah.
8:33. Going to start work soon. But anyway, I've set the raid. We're going to see DJ Bill in a minute. But yeah, thank you both of you for being on the show, being so open, honest, and lots of really interesting information about your lives and how you've gone through and dealt with issues. And thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Part of my journey. No problem. Part of my journey is going to take a little bit of a break at the moment. We'll probably be back in the new year. And tomorrow night on the show is all back to mine. I've got Constance Kay. Hopefully you can tune in for that. She's going to be picking out 7 of her choice 7s. That starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. And then we've got Chrome the week after. And then we've got some other people coming on further down. But thank you again. And if anyone needs to chat, then we're here. Just make sure you reach out. As we've said, talking is really important. And if you'd like to talk about any mental health issues, there's lots of charities, certainly in the UK and I assume a load in Australia as well. Mine, Time to Change, Mental Health, Samaritan's Calm Zone, and get in touch with any of those. But thank you so much, guys. If you hang on there for a minute, we'll raid out and have a chat in a second. But thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for your support. Thank you for all your comments. And we'll hopefully see you very soon. Take it easy.
Cheers.
Thanks, all.
No problem. Right. So we are raided out.